All right, the Tigers in damage control after 6 straight losses, and De Silva joining the Eels mid-season. What's our thoughts on this?
Well, I think it was always heading down this path, Brace, once the Tigers decided to keep up at Coruscant. I mean, Richo had met with Talan Silva and his family, and they made it pretty clear that if Appy stayed, if they extended up his contract, Talan would leave. He had a year left in his contract. He's on big money next year, and the Tigers thought, well, if it's going to happen, and there was no way they were going to convince him to change his mind because they decided to keep, because he wants to play first grade. He wants to be a first grade hooker. He wants to start, and he and his family believe he's ready for that. Couldn't they have taken
a stronger stance? I'm just asking the question. Couldn't they have taken a stronger stance? He's got a year and a half pretty much left. Yes, he wants to be the dominant 9, doesn't want to play behind Appy, but you don't always get your own way. When you sign the contract, you know who's ahead of you. You know what. You know.
But by cutting him loose, they've got $600,000 to play with now. And he was.
But Reedy, have they given up? Have they given up on this season?
No, because Appy's a starting.
They're fighting to avoid the wooden spoon. What if Appy Coruscant gets hurt?
Well, they've got a kid named Tristan Hope.
Oh, Tristan Hope hasn't played. He's a New South Wales Cup player. He's there for a reason.
Well, this kid's a 20-year-old.
They've given up on the season. They've let their 2 best young players have now left the club. Galvin and De Silva. They're the 2 best youngsters at that club.
Right.
And they're both gone. Both. Yeah. Both were under contract until the end of next season.
Well, and one was going to take him to court, so you wanted him to sit there and go to court with the kid?
I'll give you Galvin.
Oh, you give me Galvin, OK.
This young hooker is a very...
He's their backup hooker. Have you seen anything to suggest that Talan Silva, with due respect to Talan Silva... I have
spoken to a lot of very good judges in the game who rate him extremely highly. That's why Manly wanted him, why Newcastle wanted him, why Parramatta wanted him. And for the West Tigers just to say, oh, I did a deal with his mum and dad. Did his mum and dad pick the team?
He's far from the finished product right now, Buzz. He's a few years off being a really good NRL player.
Why couldn't he have played out his contract?
What's the use of that?
For 18 months, they've got to win footy games.
Yeah, and Appy helps them win footy games.
Can I just name it?
You know what? Can I say, getting an extra $600,000 in your salary cap...
Who are they going to sign?
Well, who knows what's going to happen in the off-season, Buzz? We see it every year. Players become available. They're now armed
18 months
to go and get someone.
I'll name some players. Galvin, De Silva, Utoi Kamanu. Sean Bloor was about 22 when he left. And there was a kid there, a schoolboy, Honor Tony Large.
Right.
The hottest young...
He was about 16, but go on.
Well, 17.
He left indeed now.
But he wanted the West Tigers too. He broke his contract to get out of that club. All I want you to think about is why have 5 outstanding young players in the last 12 months all wanted out of the West Tigers.
Can I talk to about
5 of them, mate. I'm not talking to Silva.
OK, they've all wanted out, but what about they've signed Latu Fanu? They've signed Samuel Afanu.
That was before Richo. That was before Richo came to the club. You know that was.
Well, you're saying Richo's the issue?
No, I'm not saying Richo's the issue.
What's it got to do with when Richo arrived?
What is the issue?
I'm just saying to you, and I've given you names that 5 outstanding young footballers walked out on that club.
Jerome Luai, Taruva. I've just given you examples of guys who've come to the club.
But they're not young kids. They're not the future.
Latu Fanu's 20
I'm going
years
to lay
old.
it out here now, and I'll ask you if you've heard this. Have you heard the stories that Jerome Luai and Appy Coruscant are so tight with Benji Marshall, they've got that little circle of 3, and there's a lot of younger players that don't quite feel part of that outfit.
I'm sure this...
And you know that was the situation with Galvin. I'm wondering if it had anything to do with these fellas as well.
Well, they were assured by Talan De Silva and his parents that if Talan wanted to stay at the club, but that if Appy re-signed, he would leave. But Richo was assured by his family that Talan's preference was to stay at the Tigers and be their long-term.
But aren't you fighting to win a spot? When is there going to be a young kid to win the spot?
Well, obviously he thinks he's ready
go to a Balmain hooker by the name of Benny Elias. Wasn't Neil Whittaker the club captain?
Yep.
And wasn't he the number 9? And didn't he just play so good that they had to pick him above him?
And Reedy, I want to ask you, the Canberra Raiders are leading the comp. They've got a kid called Owen Patty.
Yep.
Really good hooker. Can't break into that first grade side because Starling's outstanding. Yeah. They've even signed the young fella from Newcastle, Brayley. He's prepared and he's happy to buy into that system. Can I ask you how many hookers the Broncos have? How many do they have?
Oh, about 4.
Are any of them lining up to get out now? 18 months out from a contract.
Well, Corey Pace doesn't have a contract for next year, so some of them are
But is
going.
he-
Oh, hang on. I just want to interject here, circle back to what you said, Buzz, because I'd really heard of that. You spoke about Api Coruscant, Luai and Benji having this circle, and he asked you, Reedy, if you'd heard that, and you didn't answer it. Have you heard that, or was that... Because that's news to me.
Whether I've heard that Benji and Uppy and Jerome are tight, and they're... yeah,
Well, they're
we know they are. We know
Yeah.
they're extremely tight.
But that's okay, but is it a healthy relationship, or is it healthy amongst the playing group?
Look,
There's nothing wrong
I
with
was
that.
very critical of Lachlan Galvin, the manner in which his manager handled his exit. But I do know that Lachlan Galvin, on the quiet, felt a little bit locked out once Luai and that they established this big three at the club.
We all had the rumours that Luai and others would prefer to have played with Latu Fanu. I mean, those rumours were going around earlier in the year. I don't know how true they are.
Do you believe that then? Because it looks like that's how it's played out in the end.
Well, obviously there was something to it because obviously Lockie's left the club now. I don't necessarily think that was the case with
I'm not being rude,
Talan Silva.
but I think the point that Five... You know how highly regarded Honour Tony Large is?
Yeah.
He is, they say, the best schoolboy halfback going around, Union and Rugby League. And, mate, he didn't want a bar of the joint.
Where'd he
Didn't
go?
want Manly to wait for Cherry Evans. He's still a kid. I just think it's a bad look when so much young talent.
But Richard,
all go.
they've got some young... I mean, Richard.
Sure.
Buzz, they've got some
was your
young,
last phone call.
young talent. They've got some young talent coming through. Macassini signed a lot. The young kid signed, the young centre, who everyone says is going to be a superstar. Yeah, right. He signed a long-term deal at that club. Now there's Phoenix Godden. I think they've got a whole lot of schoolboys coming through now who've signed long-term deals at that club and are willing to stay and fight for their jobs.
But hold on, De Silva had a long-term deal too.
Yeah, but he's got someone blocking his path, Buzz.
But they've. So's Owen Patty, so's
No.
Billy Walters.
No. You can't compare Tommy Starling and Jaden Brayley to Api Coruscant. There's no...
Yes,
with
you
due
can.
respect to... No. You're going to tell me that...
What, the two hookers who've got Canberra to the top of the ladder, you think their spot's in danger, Starling?
I think eventually Paddy will
He's
take
just
his
signed
spot.
again.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think Paddy will take his spot, yeah. Or they'll work together. But Uppy's has been playing 80 minutes most weeks for the Tigers.
I think they should have...
There's no path for talent.
Reedy, this is just my thoughts. I think they should have tried harder to keep him, but most certainly insisted he see out his 18 months.
Mate, Richo,
when they're now in a dangerous position where they could win a fourth wooden spoon.
Richo went to his house, sat down with his family. What more do you want him to do?
Yeah, but if you go to every mum and dad who says, oh, the kid's not happy, and you make decisions... No, seriously. Look, I think it's lovely
No, but
that
he went there to try and
to...
convince them to stay, Buzz.
All right, let's move on from the Nines, OK? You both made your point. You both don't agree, as usual. Let's get 6 losses in a row, the Tigers. A bit of noise around Benji. Has Richo jumped the gun on his support for Benji, or where are we at with this situation? Is his job safe? I don't know. Have you guys heard anything? What's the latest?
I think his job's safe, Braith.
For next year too?
Well, that depends probably on how he finishes the season, I'd imagine. I mean, if they lose every game from here on in, Benji's going to be under immense pressure. But I think right now, Richo's shown with the decision to sign up or retain Api Coruscant rather than Talan Silva, he's back in the coach. And he wants to give Benji every chance to succeed.
Or was it true that Benji wanted Api?
Benji wanted Api, yeah.
And the club wanted De Silva?
No, I don't think that's necessarily right, Gordy. I think Benji wanted Api and the club has backed their coach. And I think that's what you've got to do in that situation.
Well, they have improved this year.
They've got better.
Amongst all of this drama and 6 losses in a row, if you peel it all back, they have got better. And they've been a much better team to watch.
I think so too.
But in saying that, the next couple of months is critical. Because if they blow all that with a poor back end of the year, considering the players they do have on the field, Buzz?
Yeah. Look, I hope Benji does finish strong and saves his job.
What do you think, though, Buzz? You seem like you're just sort of holding back here a little bit.
No, look, I think if they run last, he'll probably lose his job because there are other people around, like Willie Peters, who's breaking records over at Hull in England. He's coached at Newcastle. He's coached at South. He's a very good coach, and he's close to Shane Richardson. He worked under him at the Rabbitohs. And I think they will, if they run last, or even second last, they'll have to look at other options, not just for the way the football side's playing. That club needs to create an environment where people like Talan Silva and Lachlan Galvin want to play footy for the rest of their careers.